get that out of the way. So I'll just clip this out. Get it out of the way nice and cleanly. And then what we have is we have kind of a clear, detailed journey. You have to look at a haircut like a map, really. That's what it is. It's like using GPS on your phone. There's multiple ways that you can find to get home or to go to work or wherever it is you're going. And that's kind of like what haircuts are like. We can find multiple ways, multiple journeys to achieve these shapes. So my idea is to try and find all of them and explore all of them and find the most efficient. So we can do the most difficult, the most longest way. We can do the most treacherous way, the most, kind of hectic way to get there. Or we can do the most simplified, easy, quick way to do. So, with that being said, now we're going to section away the rest of the crown area, so we'll section away the underneath. So the whole point here now is to identify where I want to establish my layers from. So if I use a guide, let's say, that is in this area, if I use this length as my guide and I cut all of the weight off the top, then as you can see, this particular area is actually just below the hairline in the front. So we've got to be careful there, because what we want to do is we want to try and maintain as much density in our outline through this area. So what we have to be doing is we have to be careful. This length is pretty consistently the same all the way through. So if I do use this as a guide, I may potentially weaken this area because it's actually below the hairline in the front. This is going to be the stop point of this density. This is the weakest area of it, of this outline. So I'm going to use a length that's at that particular position of the head or higher to get my guide. So my section in here is, I'm actually going to section at the highest point of the occipital ridge, which is about there. And you can see that that clearly takes us quite high above the hairline. So that's, all about protecting what you have. So I'll work from the high occipital ridge down, following that natural around the head, just like you would section away the nape. What we're doing is we're following this natural occipital ridge right through here.
Someone asked a question.
Yeah.
Would there ever be an approach where you would cut this entirely dry? If so, what would you be considering?
Me personally, I would cut this wet. That's just how I like to cut hair. I like the control of having hair consistently the same dampness. I like to put the structure in first when it's wet, and then I like to dry it and decorate it afterwards. If I was cutting this dry, I would have to blow dry it super smooth and consistently get every piece the same consistency. So if I'm going to smooth it, I'm going to make sure everything's perfectly smooth. If I'm going to cut it when it's dry and it's curly, it's the same thing again. I've got to set that hair up first. Or I could go for a shape, then dry it, and then visually work the curls into it because I'd cut it with a lot of tension previously. So those are a couple of things that I would watch out for personally, either way. But again, I like the control of having the hair damp to begin with. So this is my section that will actually protect my outline. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this length now that I have here as a guide to layer through the inside, because that's my outline. So now I'm going to let the crown down. This is my first area. So this is my pre-sectioning. Now I let this down, and I'm going to use this, which has been created by me cutting my outline, as the guide. So we cut our outline in first. Again, I'm going to protect the length that I already have on this mannequin. So this is my outline down here. So body position here, I'm going to turn her around, Katie, because I need to be in the right spot here. So I'm working from the back towards the front. So I'm going to work from my fingertips pointing down. What this is going to allow me to do is, once I raise my elbow, look at what happens with my scissor. Right? This is without me having to do anything to it. It's naturally going to create that curvature. See, when I layer this, I'm going to follow the contour of the head shape. So if I was stood on the opposite side, that means I would be working from the front towards the back. So I'd be working from here down. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to take more weight out of the inside. I'm going to potentially leave more weight on that exterior. So I'm going to have the ability to create more concave if I work from the top down, right? If I work from the inside out. But if I work from the bottom up, I have more chance of creating more of a convex curvature with that layering. Again, that's just understanding how the body naturally works, so I'm going to utilize that. So working into this crown area now, again, want to keep it down. So spraying it down, a lot of talking, sorry about that, a lot of info. Let me drop this down because I don't really need it that high up. So vertical section right down the middle. So now what I'm looking for in this area is I'm looking for that place. Where do I start my layer? All right, so the higher up, less layers. The lower I get a guide, more layer, all right? But my cutoff point is this area that's above the hairline, above the natural occipital ridge. So about that area. So what that does is it allows me to drop away that underneath, as you can see. And we'll use that as the guide. So I'm using this occipital area as the guide. And I'm following the head shape. So continuing using that as the guide, cutting the curvature that follows the head shape up into the crown. So right now I'm just pulling this straight out from the head. So my elevation is 90 degrees as I move from the occipital up to the top of this crown area. So as you can see now, those layers, I've taken that weight away. So that's the corner of weight that we've reduced by layering that. So now, what's going to happen now is I'm going to continue with profile sections, so vertical sections, and I'm going to over-direct back. So I have an option here. I can over-direct all my sections into the middle, but what that's going to do, that's going to make my weight drop off very drastically, get very heavy very quickly. Now I do want it to get heavier because it is weaker in this area, right? Because of that hairline jumping up. So I don't want to over-direct to the middle and it be too aggressive. So instead of bringing everything to the center, what I'll do is I'll take each section and I'll pull it straight back. And within that section, I will follow that 90-degree elevation. So my over-direction is straight back to that wall. Not into the middle, just straight back. And it follows the head shape up. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll just turn it around and you can see that cutting line. So now all I'm doing is I'm pretending I'm in a box and I'm going to send the hair to this back wall of the box. And guess what? Most of the time you're in a box. So use the room that you're in, use the salon, use the studio. Obviously when you're in a studio, those walls are a little closer to you. It's much easier to utilize what you're in to help you cut a haircut. A haircut is a box. It's a form of a box. So again, occipital ridge, there's the guide, following that guide, cutting, following the curvature of the head shape. Again, making sure 90 degrees through the entire crown so that I don't leave any excess weight by pulling that lower than 90 degrees. This is a relatively simple haircut, perfect for the salon environment, especially when you don't want to see that peak of weight in the back that does that to your client, and it flattens this area out. Next section, same thing. So profile sections up and down. I'm not pivoting my sections. As you can see, they're profile sections. So looking at the profile, I can see that they're just like so. If you think about what I'm doing is I'm literally bringing the hair into a mohawk. So that's the direction and the elevation that I'm doing. So I don't need section number 1. I'll get rid of that. I'll take section number 2 and 3, and I'll send them straight back to that wall behind the mannequin. So you see what we're doing here is we're kind of taking that corner off the back. Usually if we start from the front, we end up with this back corner weight here. And just what that does is it obviously pulls back. But now what we're doing is we're actually just taking that out. We're shaving that off in a sense. So what it does is it allows this area to be a little bit more fuller and more voluminous. Let's just have a quick cross check. So I check the opposite dimension and I check at the same elevation. So now bringing that hair up here and looking to see what's happening with my line that I'm creating. So again, I'm pulling it to that back wall and that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that flatness to that cutting line I've created. Again, I'll cross check that 90 degrees all the way through. So straight out. And looking at the cleanliness of that shape. Same thing through here, all the way down to the top of the occipital area, which is where I got my guide from. And there you see it. So now all I have to do is just join this hair that's not been cut onto this hair. See, from this point forward, see, this is the corner of the hairline. Now the hairline jumps up. Well, this is actually the side of the head shape now. So all I have to do is add the side to the back. So whatever reaches, and I don't think we're going to see much of this reach. As you can see, it's just whispers. So that's that. So now when we analyze this, we can see that it's not getting heavier towards the back. We're not seeing the weight drop that way. We're actually seeing the weight come a little bit more this way. So now I'll do the same thing on the other side. I will stay in the same body position. If I change body positions, I may encourage myself, or I will encourage myself, to cut shorter to longer. I want this to be consistently the same from occipital up. So we'll stay in the same body position. So what we would need to use here is our common sense and make sure that we use the mirror so we can see what our over direction is doing. So I'm bringing it back to the wall, but this wall could be the mirror. So let's just get this out of the way clean.
Someone asked, what is your personal favorite modified haircut approach that you've created?
My favorite one that I've created, there's a bunch. The kind of like older version of myself used to kind of make haircuts more complicated. It was all about adding disconnections and things like that. But the kind of older version of me, the more matured teacher, the last, say, 5-6 years has all been about trying to find or playing around with all these different variations. My favorite haircut is the graduated bob. That's my favorite haircut of all time. And I have a variation of that haircut where I start it from the front. and I establish the bob first before we do anything with the nape. And that's probably my favorite right now. But the class I'm teaching right now, guys, is my favorite one ever.
It's a good one.
It's such a good class.
Really
It's
good.
literally, it's all of the accumulation of everything I've learned in 30 years and everything I've taught in the 28 years I've been teaching. And it's just awesome because we go from like all these longer shapes into pixie. I mean, it's literally this kind of lineup in a sense. These are not styled or anything, they're just getting ready for next week. But they're all done different ways, different variations. Each one's got a different way we do each side, so it's a bit different to that, but same technique and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's such a cool class. Unfortunately, it's sold out for the rest of the year, so you've got to wait until next year to take a class. My 2025 schedule should be out in the fall, so in the next month or two. And we'll have some opportunities to come take some classes with myself. We do have other exciting news about our location here. What we are going to do is we're going to be opening up more dates for classes here in San Diego. Obviously, I can't be everywhere at one time, but we have a team of people here, a team of educators that are full-time educators and stylists. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up some dates where we can do some classes here, kind of a la carte. So if you want to learn a specific haircut, if you want to learn how to do the easiest graduated bob, French bob, then we can do that. We're going to do like 3-hour classes. They're going to be on Mondays. They're here in San Diego. And they're going to be really affordable. And they're for local hairdressers that want to come and learn how to get more efficient behind the chair, to be more confident in their work. To know exactly what they're doing, do you know what I mean? Cut with intent, make the blow drying really easy, that kind of stuff. Come to our open evening on Tuesday and we'll talk about that more. We'll talk about it a little bit more as we're doing this as well. But what I'm doing, guys, is I'm doing the exact same thing now. I'm stood in the same body position. So if I was in the salon and I'm looking at what I'm doing, I'm going to put my mirror here so I can see my over direction. If I put the mirror in front, then I'm looking at my elevation, which is also good, but I need to be aware of what's happening this way. So if my mirror is in front, then I'm going to need to look down on top of these sections to make sure that they're being over-directed to the right place. What we need is we need fluidity, right? We need consistent fluidity from side to side. So putting yourself in the right body position is just going to help you with these haircuts.
Someone asked, when layering, is your finger angle always parallel to your section?
Is my finger parallel to my section? Well, my sections will live, my fingers live within the section. So whatever angle my section is, that's what my fingers have to be. If not, then I'm twisting the hair around in all these different places. So as you can see, this particular haircut, my sections are just vertical sections that are parallel or profiled. So my fingers are keeping that. If I start diagonaling my fingers, then I'm going to start twisting that hair. That's when you can expect it to not be precision, all right? It'll be softer. So same thing, consistency with body position. So make sure that my feet are doing the same thing as what my shoulders are doing. My shoulders are lined up with what the hair is going to do. This is a pretty standard motion, isn't it, right? So all I have to do is I have to put my body into the position, the correct spacing, where that's going to be, and then just allow it to do what it does naturally. If I put myself in the wrong place, then I'm going to pull the hair to the wrong place. So again, working from the occipital ridge up, following the contour of the crown, all the way up to the top. So with my elevation, I'm just basically 90 degrees straight out all the way up. My over direction is straight back and my elevation is straight out. I've reached the natural round of the head, so now I can condense this section here. If I feel that there's too much density, then I will put that in half. Work smarter, not harder, right? So my guide is in here now. It's at that corner of the head shape. So all I need is that, And all I need to do is just comb this back straight away from the front, as you can see. So straight back. And there I see little wispy hairs. There's less and less hair as I've moved forward. That's because it's actually getting heavier towards the front. So the shape of this haircut right now is triangular. It's higher and shorter in the center here, and as we move forward, it's actually descending. So what that's doing is it's protecting the hair where it's the weakest. It's the weakest right in this area. So I'm pulling away from that area. As we move through, we'll be pulling away from that area still because we will be elevating up towards the ceiling. So I'll just give this side a quick cross check to make sure that we're on track. Very important that we do cross-check through just to make sure that we are balanced, we're clean. Think of it like it's a safety inspection for when you've had your house built. You're making sure that it's strong and it's safe and it's sound. And above all, it's going to grow out and still maintain that structured shape. So as we can see now, what I don't have is I don't have this. It's not getting heavier towards the back. So I've taken that peak of weight off the back here, now got a little bit more dimension and shape in the back. So now all we have to do is take this through into the front. So we'll take this down. Now, with the front area, I have options here. I could actually continue to make this get longer and heavier. So we can continue our weight doing this, getting heavier towards the front. So a really elongated layered bob, super, super long version of it. You get what I'm saying? So we can create a much more triangular shaped look to it. Now what that's going to do is that's going to close that face in because we're pushing that weight towards that area. So we're not really going to get any open through that front. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want that quintessential round, concave, layered, feathered, butterfly, cascade, curtain look through the front. So to do that, I could start from the front here and I could work up to what I've got in the back. But then what I would probably do is create this big corner where the two meet. So instead of doing that, I'm actually just going to continue working and following that head shape all the way into the front hairline now. This is a technique that can be used on multiple different lengths. The length I'm working on is the length that my mannequin gave me. So this is just like a client saying, I want to keep the length. But we could put it on length that's here, and we get this really nice, cool, shaggy bob shape. Again, this is also a shag alternative. You could use this for your shag haircuts, and they don't get heavier in the back here, too peak heavy in the center back. You just have to pick the length you want to work with. The technique is extremely versatile to multiple lengths. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Making our work behind the chair relatively simple, easy, and efficient. If we want to get complicated, we can do that. That's pretty easy to do, isn't it? I'm sure you're used to that. So, back to the top of the crown, that's where we left off. So 90 degrees from the crown, as you can see. So I'm going to continue to follow the head shape. So you can see it kind of getting a bit too heavy there. So making sure that my fingers mimic or copy the head shape. So all I'm doing is pulling 90 degrees from the head shape. I'm following the curvature that I see down here. So my fingers are matching that. So what I don't want to do is I don't want it to get longer because the head shape slopes down. It doesn't go up. So I follow all the way. And that takes us into the front. So you can see what that's done is that's given us bangs. It's given us a long start of a face frame in this front area. So now what I'll do is I'll do exactly the same thing that I did in the back. So I pulled that hair back to that wall, didn't I? So as I move through the crown, I'm going to keep bringing it back to that wall, which then turns into the ceiling as you move through. So I'm going to keep this mohawk all the way through. Profile section, so what was vertical in the back has turned into horizontal through the front. So I have one more class that it's available. I have a class coming up in November 17th and 18th. This is for my international friends. I'm going to be in Milan, Italy, teaching a class with my friends at Bonds Education in Milano, Italia. And it's a 2-day class. It's going to be both look and learn on live models. And it's going to be hands-on with me and the Bonds team. And it's 2 days, November 17th and 18th. You can follow the link in my bio. It will be the last class that I teach this year. It's the only class available for me now for the rest of the year. So for my European friends, for my Italian friends, for my American friends that want a trip to Italy and want to take a class with me, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone with that one. So yeah, looking forward to that one. I've been to Italy quite a few times, but I've never been to Milan. Have any of you guys been to Milan? Anyone from Milan? Been to Rome a bunch of times, done a lot of hairdressing there over the years. So what we're doing is we're following the contour of the head shape from occipital all the way forward. Great technique. As, like I said before, you could do this on multiple lengths. We're doing it on this particular length here, but a nice length is around about this area. You get that nice shaggy bob kind of feeling to it. So my sections are just exactly the same. Everything is going up to the ceiling. So I'm not bringing everything into the middle. I didn't do that in the back. I need consistent fluidity. So I do the same thing. So here's my guide. Now follow the curvature of the head shape. So again, all I need to do now is take this area, which is the same as this area, and just add it to it. So I can condense the hair that's below the natural round of the head because it's been brought into the hair above it. So again, working through that crown all the way down to the front hairline. So just again, just whispers. So that takes us all the way through to that front hairline. So now we'll cross-check that through. So all I'm going to do is cross-check that now, and then we'll do the other side. Just pulling hairs out here. But yeah, nice and clean, that's what we're looking for. You know, this is also somewhere where, you know, you don't have to cut blunt like I have. You could point cut this entire technique to get that much kind of softer visual to it, much more piecier. Over directions and elevations are all pretty much consistent. The tool would be make the difference. Okay, so now we do the other side. So I'll take the guide right down the center from the previous side. So, profile section on the new side. Using my guide from the previous side. Now, one thing you will notice when I cut hair, I always comb the side of the section that I'm about to cut. I don't comb the guide side. If I comb this side, that's where the guide is. What I'll do is I'll actually comb the guide towards me. So what it's doing is it's pushing that over here. What it will do is it will make it shorter. So then I'll cut the next section shorter than the guideline because I've moved the guide towards it. So instead of it being level on one side, it's going to start to do that. But on the other side, it's like that. So I've got to be careful with where I comb the hair. What I want is this, right? So I gather the hair and now I comb the side of the hair that I'm about to cut. Not what I've already cut. If I get longer, I don't find that a mistake. I could always cut more off. But if I get shorter when I'm supposed to get longer, that is the definition of mistake. Do you know what I mean? And it shouldn't be like that in hair cutting. It should be all about control and doing exactly what you've agreed with the client. Average should not be acceptable in what we're doing. So continuing with those sections, I only need my previous now, so get rid of that entire side. So continuing with these profile sections. So quite a simple section in pattern. Think of what you could do with this section in pattern. You probably already do it when working from the front towards the back, lifting everything up towards the ceiling. You could work with much shorter lengths as well. This could move and work into pixie shapes, this section in pattern. Again, we work to the parietal ridge, using the previous as a guide. And then we condense and bring the rest of the underneath into that. Need a bit more guideline. So now I'm going to condense and I'll bring everything else that's below the natural round of the head into the top. So I work to this point and then I condense this. So again, using the hair in the parietal ridge area as the guide. So using hair from the top as the guide. So my mirror would be right in the front of the client here so I could see what my elevation is doing. Am I pushing this in towards the center or am I literally using that mohawk kind of feeling? So now that I've done that, I can cross-check this side. So checking the opposite way. nice and clean. All the way through to the front. So we've got the structure of this particular shape in there. Now we can kind of do all the little tweaks to make it work to the individual that we're working on. So maybe if we want to take the fringe, the bangs, the frame a little bit shorter, we can do that now. But we've got the basic structure of the shape in there. So you've built the house now, and now it's all about decorating.
Somebody asked, what would the haircut look like if you pushed everything to the center?
Then what we're going to get is you're going to get more exaggeration of your length, so much more softer edges and stuff like that, much more concave. Now, when you cut more like this, what it does is it leaves more weight on this inside panel, right? Now, if you think about the head shape, it comes to a peak. So that leaves more volume in that top area by cutting flatter through here. Once we start cutting more concave, a more extreme concave than what this is, then we allow this, in this center area where the parting is, to fall much softer and lighter. So it's something that what a lot of people will do is they'll come through and they'll point cut into that, down that middle after, if they wanted to soften as it falls. I kind of wanted to keep mine a little bit more voluminous through this area. So it's what you want to achieve. So if you create more of a V or a U with your concave, then the inside's going to fall much softer and lighter. If you create more of a flatness through here, more of a square line, then you're going to leave more weight where that peak of the head shape is. So now that that's in there, let's just have a look. Make sure we're good through the middle. So now that that's there, I can have a look at the front now, that kind of framing area. Let's get her even. Hope you guys are all right. I'm learning, making you think. Next week we have another exciting addition to our education. We will be releasing Knowledge Destroys Fear 3 next week. Knowledge Destroys Fear 2 was amazing. Thank you everybody for supporting me and purchasing that over the last, I think it's 5 years we've had that out. But it was time for a new one, and basically KDF 3 is my current class that I travel around and I teach wherever I go. My class is consistently the same wherever I am. And this is the current version of it. It's multiple camera angles, it's just me and the cameras, and Katie's in there too. There's blow drying in there, there's product usage, thanks to my friends from Evo. It's going to be awesome, you're going to love it. There's 5 different things going on in the looks, but multiple versions of those looks. Alright, so let's have a look at this front area. So we just want to kind of look at the front panel here. So from the apex down, I'm going to take this and have a look at what's going on here. We need a little bit more water in here. So yeah, KDF 3 will be released next week. You will be able to stream it, have access to it. It's going to be streaming access for 12 months. You get it for a year, so it's like a subscription. And you'll be able to access that whenever you want, online, on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, wherever you are. And yeah, should be great. I think it's also a really good tool to use for training your assistants, your younger talent within your teams. So just looking through this now, I can see like the major difference between these two areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of blend them together, pulling this hair forward. making sure there's not a great big corner in the middle there, and then just working out to our length that we have. So bringing that hair up and just cutting it on a flat plane here. And it just takes that away. Now I could do this and I could lift it even higher up if I want to, make that much softer as it falls. Again, cut lower, it falls heavier. Cut higher, it falls softer. It's really simple stuff. So that just kind of works this through much nicer. There's a connection there, not just leaving it. If I just left it, then it might not grow out, very well, the longevity of the shape. So again, through here, getting rid of that corner in the middle. And working it out to the existing length. Another way of cutting a shag haircut, bringing everything onto this front horizontal line. But we're just doing that front panel. None of this is really going to reach, is it? Because of the shape of the haircut. So now looking at that. Looking at how that falls, and if you see anything that you want to kind of adjust, this is the time to do it. So we cut technically, then we must look at it visually. Because guess what the client doesn't have all day? Doesn't have you walking around making sure everything's falling in place and looking right for Instagram and TikTok. You've got to do that before they leave. The testament of your work is not what it looks like when it leaves, it's what it looks like when it's out there and what it looks like when it actually walks back and sits in your chair. So I'm happy with that. So now I've got quite a cool, shaggish, round concave layered shape, but technically it's not fully round. What shape is it? What's going on in here? Well, if you think about what we've done, we've combined two haircuts here. We've combined the one where we lift everything up and we work short to long. And we've combined the one where we pull everything back and we work short to long that way. So if I put round and triangular together, what it does is it creates this kind of diamond-shaped haircut. So we're leaving the majority of the weight in this area where it is the weakest. We're not leaving the majority of the weight down in this bottom nape area where it starts to do that to the person. See, now I'm encouraging this to have more shape and definition, and my layers falling in a higher position. So the next thing for this is obviously the product and the blow dry. I think what we'll do is obviously we'll do what we normally do. We'll blow dry it after the fact, so we won't bore you to death with the blow drying part. But what we will do is we'll use product. Most likely going to use my favorite, which is Easy Tiger from Evo. It's a smoothing balm. I love using this, and I also love using this as well lately. Whip It Good. A little moisture, a little control when you blow drying it. They both are great. I think the Whip It Good adds a bit more memory in there for you, and that moisture in there. And this is a really kind of lightweight smoothing balm. So we'll just probably use this today. And just work it in from ends to roots. And then I'll use my Evo paddle brush, and I'll use my brand new blow dryer. Thank you to Dyson for giving me the new Supersonic R. I used this in April back when I was in Paris, and it was really good, and I've had to wait until now to actually get one. Thankfully I didn't have to pay for it. Thank you, Dyson, for sending me that. It's very nice of you guys to give me tools wherever I go. And what I'll do is I'll blow dry this and we'll post this later. I hope you guys enjoyed that technique. Again, profile layering from back to front, working this way through, over directing straight back into that profile mohawk and then straight up as we work through. I'll put the diagram of what this is on my stories and the finished look later on my stories. Again, thanks for tuning in. It's great to see you guys again, and we'll see you next month.